The day my brother chose money over our family, I did not cry. I surprised myself by how still I felt. I stood there, holding a folded piece of paper in my hands, and I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because something inside me had gone quiet. It was a smile people wear when they understand something too late. The kind of smile that comes after years of trust finally fall apart. The kind that says, "I see you now." We were sitting at the old dining table. The same table where we once did homework together. The same table where our mother served soup when we were sick. The same table where we laughed so loudly the neighbors complained. That day, the table felt smaller, colder, like it no longer belonged to us. My brother did not look at me when he spoke. He kept his eyes on the paper between us.
His voice was calm. Too calm.
"This is just how it has to be," he said. And in that moment I knew. This was not about the house. This was not about the land. This was not even about money. This was about a choice. And he had already made it. We did not grow up rich, but we grew up together. And that mattered more than anything. There were only two of us. Me and my younger brother, Samuel. People always say younger siblings are closer to their mothers, but Samuel was close to everyone.
He had that soft way about him.
The kind that made people trust him without thinking. Our father died when we were still young. I was 16. Samuel was only 11. After that, our house became very quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. The kind that sits heavy on your chest. Our mother did her best. She worked long hours. She came home tired, her hands rough, her smile thinner each year. I became something like a second parent. I cooked. I cleaned. I helped Samuel with school. At night, when the power went out, we would sit together by candlelight. Samuel would lean against me and ask, "Do you think Papa can see us?" I always said yes. Even when I was not sure. That house was never fancy. The paint peeled. The roof leaked during heavy rain. But it was ours. Our mother used to say, "As long as we have this roof, we have each other." I believed her. Every corner of that house held a memory. The kitchen where mother sang while cooking. The doorway where father stood every evening waiting for us. The backyard where Samuel learned to ride a bicycle and fell so many times I lost count. When mother got older, she worried about the house. About what would happen to it after she was gone. "You both must promise me," she said one night, her voice soft. "No fighting."
No biternis.
Samuel squeezed her hand.
I promis, ma.
I nodded. I did not know promises could break so quietly. I married young. Not because I wanted to leave, but because life moved fast. I stayed close, visited often, helped mother whenever I could. Samuel went to college. Then he got a good job. Then he moved farther away. I was proud of him.
So proud.
Whenever people spoke about him, my chest filled with warmth. "That's my brother," I would say. When mother fell ill, Samuel came home more often. He looked different then. More serious. More distant. Still, I told myself it was stress.
Work. Life.
We sat together many evenings, talking quietly while mother slept. I thought we were still the same. I was wrong. After mother passed, the house felt empty in a way I cannot explain. Not just empty of people. Empty of warmth. We waited a few weeks before talking about anything practical. I did not want to rush. Grief needs space. One afternoon, Samuel called me over. He had papers on the table. Legal papers. "This is just to organize things," he said. I trusted him. I always had. As he spoke, I felt something shift. Small at first. Like a crack you pretend not to see. He talked about property value. About selling options. About what made sense. I asked quietly, "What about what Ma wanted?" He paused. Just for a second. Then he said, "This isn't about feelings anymore." That sentence stayed with me. It still does. That night, I lay awake thinking about all the years we shared. All the meals. All the promises. I never imagined money could speak louder than memory.
But it was beginning to.
And somewhere between grief and silence, My brother was slowly becoming someone I did not recognize. After that afternoon, nothing felt the same between my brother and me. Nothing was loud. Nothing was openly angry. But something gentle had broken, and we were both stepping carefully around it. The house itself seemed to notice. The walls felt colder. The air felt heavier, like it was waiting for something bad to be said. Samuel started coming home with papers more often. Folders. Envelopes. Things he never explained fully, unless I asked. And when I did ask, his answers were short. Just documents. Just planning ahead. Nothing you need to worry about. Those words hurt more than shouting ever could. We used to talk about everything. Now we talked about nothing important. When I made tea, he drank it quietly. When I cooked, he thanked me politely, like a guest. Not like my brother. Sometimes I would start a sentence and stop halfway. I did not want to sound suspicious. I did not want to sound afraid. I kept telling myself I was imagining things. At night, I lay in my old room, staring at the ceiling fan. The same fan that once rocked us to sleep during power cuts. I remembered how Samuel used to crawl into my bed when he had nightmares. How he would whisper, "Don't let anything happen to us." I wondered when we stopped protecting each other. One morning, while washing dishes, I asked him gently, "Do you plan to keep the house?" He did not look up from his phone. "I'm thinking of all options." The word options sat heavy in my chest. "This is our home," I said quietly.
He sighed.
"Emotionally, yes. Practically, it's an asset." I did not respond. I just dried my hands slowly. That was the first time I felt small in my own home. Samuel started talking like a stranger. Using words growing up. Investment. Market value. Fair division. I noticed he never said family anymore. One evening, I heard him on the phone. He was in the other room, but the walls were thin. "Yes," he said. "It's better to handle it cleanly. No emotions involved." I sat very still. My hands trembled, but I did not cry. A week later, he brought a lawyer's letter. He placed it on the table between us. Just like before. "I think it's best if we formalize things," he said. I stared at the paper. The words blurred. "Why?" I asked. "So there are no misunderstandings later." I wanted to laugh. Misunderstandings were already everywhere. "Samuel," I said softly, "do you think I would ever take what isn't mine?" He hesitated. Just for a moment. "I think people change when money is involved." That sentence felt like a slap. That night, I dreamed of our mother. She was sitting at the kitchen table, peeling vegetables. "You must take care of each other," she said.
Her voice was calm.
Firm. I woke up with tears running down my face. The next morning I tried again. "Ma wouldn't want this," I told Samuel. He looked tired. "I know what Ma wanted. But Ma isn't here anymore." I had no answer to that. From that day on, I started locking my room. Not because I feared him, but because I feared what we were becoming. I kept my documents close. My memories closer. We stopped eating together.
Different schedules, he said.
The house felt divided. Like an invisible line ran through the middle. Sometimes I caught him looking at me. Not with anger. With calculation. And that hurt the most. One afternoon, an old neighbor stopped by. She had known us since childhood. "I heard about your mother," she said gently. "I'm so sorry."
We talked for a while.
Then she asked, "So, what will happen to the house?" I smiled politely. "We're still deciding." She nodded. "You know, money can change people." She did not know how right she was that I wanted to ask Samuel so many things. Why didn't he trust me? Why was everything so rushed? Why did it feel like he was preparing for a battle I didn't want to fight? But I stayed quiet. Sometimes silence feels safer than truth. At night, I prayed. Not for the house. Not for money. I prayed for my brother. More letters arrived. More meetings. More quiet conversations that ended too quickly. Samuel stopped calling me by my name. He said "we" when he meant himself. "This is what's best for everyone," he kept saying. I wondered who everyone was. Because it did not feel like me. One evening, as rain tapped against the windows, Samuel finally said, "I think we should sell." The words hung in the air. I looked at him, at my little brother, at the boy who once promised never to leave me. And I realized something painful. The fight had not started yet. But the love was already bleeding. The rain continued for 3 days after Samuel said he wanted to sell the house. Not heavy rain, just a slow, steady kind that soaks into the ground and refuses to leave. It felt like the house was mourning with me. I did not answer him right away that evening. I stood by the window and watched the water slide down the glass. Each drop looked like it was searching for a place to rest. "This house is all we have left of them," I finally said. Samuel crossed his arms. "It's a building," he replied. "What matters is what we do next." That was the moment I understood something important. We were standing in the same room, but we were no longer standing on the same ground. A week later, Samuel asked me to meet him at a lawyer's office. He said it would be easier there, clearer. I dressed carefully that morning, not because I wanted to look strong, but because I felt weak. The office was quiet and smelled like paper and polish. The chairs were firm. The walls were bare. Samuel sat across from me, calm and prepared. He had brought documents neatly arranged in a folder. I had brought nothing. The lawyer spoke gently, but his words felt sharp. "According to the valuation," he said, "selling is the most practical solution." I wanted to interrupt. I wanted to say this was not just about value, but my voice stayed inside me. Samuel nodded along, like he was agreeing to weather facts. Like this was all simple and obvious. The lawyer spoke about percentages, shares, timelines. Each word erased something precious. The backyard where we played, the kitchen where Mother sang, the hallway where Father's shoes still rested by the door. All of it reduced to numbers on a page. "Do you have any objections?" the lawyer asked me. I looked at Samuel. He did not look back. "I need time," I said quietly. The lawyer nodded. "Of course." Samuel sighed. Not loudly, just enough for me to hear. Outside the office, Samuel stopped me. "I don't want this to get ugly," he said.
Ugly.
That word echoed in my head.
Neither do I replied.
"Then don't make it harder than it has to be." I felt my chest tighten. "This isn't hard because of me," I said softly. "It's hard because you forgot who we are." For a moment, something flickered in his eyes.
Guilt.
Maybe. Then it disappeared. "I'm doing what's smart," he said. And there it was. The line he would not cross back over. 2 days later, a registered letter arrived. It was formal.
Cold.
It stated that if I did not agree to sell, legal steps would follow. I sat at the kitchen table holding that letter for a long time. The same table where Mother once kissed my forehead. My hands shook, but my face stayed calm. I realized then that Samuel had already decided. The meeting had been a formality. My feelings were an inconvenience. That night, we did not speak. The house was silent except for the ticking clock. Each tick felt like time slipping away from us. I wanted to knock on his door. I wanted to remind him of who he used to be, but I stayed where I was. Some doors closed without a sound. I remembered a night from years ago, a storm much worse than this one. Samuel had been afraid. Thunder shook the walls. "Don't let go," he said, holding my hand. "I won't," I promised. That promise haunted me now. Because he had already let go, the next conversation was the hardest. Samuel stood in the living room, papers in his hand. "I think it would be better if you found another place," he said.
His voice was steady.
Controlled.
"For now," he added.
I nodded slowly. "How long?" I asked. "Until this is settled." I wanted to ask him where home was supposed to be now, but I did not. Instead, I said, "I understand." And that was the lie that hurt the most, and I packed quietly. Not because I had forgiven him, but because I had no strength left to fight. Each box felt like a goodbye. Photographs. Old letters. Mother's scarf. I left behind things I could not carry. Walls cannot be packed. Samuel watched from the doorway once. He did not say anything. Neither did I before I left. He asked me to sign one last paper.
"Just acknowledgement," he said.
I read it slowly. My name looked unfamiliar on that page. As I signed, my hand was steady. That surprised me, because inside, something had already broken completely. When I stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The sky was gray but calm. I turned back once. Just once. The house stood there, quiet and patient, like it always had. I whispered goodbye. Not to the house. To my brother. That was the day Samuel chose money over family. Not with shouting. Not with anger. But with silence, papers, and careful decisions. And in that quiet choice, everything we were finally changed. When I left that house, I did not know where I was going. I only knew where I was not welcome anymore. I stayed with a distant relative at first. A small room. A narrow bed. A window that looked out onto another wall. At night, I lay awake listening to unfamiliar sounds.
Cars passing.
Someone coughing in the next room. A clock that ticked too loudly. I had never felt so untethered. Like a leaf that had finally fallen but had not yet touched the ground. The days passed slowly. I found a rhythm. Simple things. Making tea in the morning. Walking in the evening. Calling friends I had not spoken to in years. People asked careful questions. I gave gentle answers. Yes, I'm fine. No, we're just sorting things out. I learned how easy it is to hide heartbreak behind polite words. Sometimes I passed houses that looked like ours. Same shape. Same size. My chest would tighten, then slowly release. I reminded myself to breathe. Weeks turned into months. The house was sold. I heard it from someone else. Not from Samuel. I imagined strangers walking through the rooms, touching the walls, opening the cupboards, living their lives where ours had once unfolded. That image hurt less than I expected, because the real loss was not the house. It was the bond that had been sold long before the papers were signed. One afternoon, a letter arrived. The handwriting was familiar. Samuel. I held it for a long time before opening it. I was not afraid of the words. I was afraid of what they might wake inside me. The letter was short. He wrote that things had gone faster than he expected, that the process had been stressful, that he hoped I was settling in. There was no apology.
No explanation.
Just facts. At the bottom he wrote, I hope one day you understand. I folded the letter carefully. Understanding, I thought, is not the same as accepting. People talk about forgiveness as if it is a gift you give someone else. They are wrong. Forgiveness is something you give yourself. Not all at once. Not easily. I did not forgive Samuel right away. I let myself feel the sadness, the disappointment, the quiet grief. I spoke to our mother in my thoughts. You tried, I told her. We both did. Slowly, something inside me softened. Not toward him. Toward myself. That I found a small place of my own eventually. Nothing special. But it was mine. I placed my mother's scarf on the back of a chair. I hung a single photograph on the wall. Me and Samuel as children, smiling without knowing why. At first, that picture made me cry. Later, it made me smile. Not because things ended well, but because they once were good. Time does not heal everything, but it changes the shape of pain. It becomes quieter, less sharp. I stopped expecting Samuel to call. I stopped replaying old conversations in my head. I focused on the life in front of me. Small joys. Simple routines. Peace does not arrive loudly. It arrives when you stop waiting for something else. Almost a year later, I saw Samuel again.
It was at a family gathering.
Someone's wedding. The room was full of noise and laughter. We stood on opposite sides at first. Then our eyes met. He looked older. Tired. We walked toward each other slowly, like strangers who shared a memory.
Hello, he said.
Hello, I replied. That was all.
No explanations. No apologies.
Just two people standing in the space between what was and what would never be again. Before he walked away, he paused. I hope you're well, he said. I nodded. I am. And I realized it was true, that I learned that love does not always survive practical decisions. That people do not always become cruel. Sometimes, they just become afraid. I learned that family can break without noise, without shout, without anyone meaning to hurt anyone else. And I learned that losing a house is painful, but losing yourself is worse. If you're listening to this and carrying a similar story, I want you to know something. You are allowed to grieve what you lost. Even if others say you should be over it, you are allowed to remember the good. Even if the ending was painful, and you are allowed to choose peace. Even if it means walking away quietly. Some doors close so we can learn how strong we are without them. I still think of the house sometimes. Of candlelight and laughter. Of promises made by children who meant them. I do not regret loving my brother. Even now. Because love given honestly is never wasted. It simply teaches us who we are when everything else is gone.